So our speaker for this session will be Preethi Kumaresan. Preethi got her bachelor's degree in electronics and communications from Anna University before getting her master's in information systems and technology management at the University of Santa Cruz. She then worked at Cisco for 14 years in various roles. Most recently, she worked as an AI consultant and a business operations manager. And right now she's working as a senior data science manager at VMware. And her entrepreneurial journey started with the Singularity University's Global Startup Program. And today she'll be discussing about how women entrepreneurs can leverage opportunities in artificial intelligence and technology. So let's please welcome Preethi Kumaresan.
Hi everyone. It's great to be here. There's a lot of people in the audience, which I didn't expect. It's such a pleasant surprise. So anyways, I guess I was just introduced, so I will go ahead and start. Let me do the screen share. I do have a few slides prepared for today, but I want to make this as much interactive as possible. Please raise your hand, or there's also questions coming in the, if you want to do questions on the chat panel, that's fine as well. So I'll go through my presentation and we'll reserve some time for questions towards the end. If you want to do that, that's fine as well.
Are you able to share?
Yeah, well,
yeah, we can see.
Okay. So I want to thank Meena and Sivagami for reaching out and making this possible. Definitely thanks to both of you ladies for putting everything together. It's such an awesome show, and very happy to be part of this. So let's go into the screen mode. All right, so I have these definitions here. Obviously, my goal is to talk to you about artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, and applications of it in entrepreneurship. And
yes, sorry to interrupt. I think you have to swap your monitor, actually. You're sharing the second monitor.
Thanks. Okay.
Yeah, now we're good. Yeah, all good.
Thank you. So, but I also understand you are part of a longer workshop where you're getting into the technicalities of a lot of this stuff. So I won't get into the details of how deep learning is different from machine learning, and or what is supervised learning or unsupervised learning. Just before I joined the call, I just heard Jyoti talk about supervised versus unsupervised learning. So I'm going to try and not repeat. So my hope is to keep it high level and go through some of the technicalities, but quickly jump to applications of it. What I want to say before we start is there is the skill and the craftsmanship of AI and machine learning, the models. How do you apply it? To what data to apply it? And get very, once you get well versed with it, then the next step is to think about how do you get meaning out of it? How do you make it into something that's useful for your day-to-day life? How do you, once you go down that journey, then the next step is how do you then create a company around it? How do you use some of these technologies to create a company? How do you make that successful? How do you make sure you're solving something that's very important to your customer base? What's your market? What's your product? What's your product market fit? So I'm hoping there will be some questions around that. So as they mentioned, I was a techie, worked in technology for the longest time. And I did my own consulting, took a break from corporate jobs and built a consulting business around AI and machine learning, which gave me the opportunity to apply this technology to different industries and be able to handle and work with multiple teams parallelly. I did a little bit of outsourcing where I outsourced some of my work to a few people in India. Then I was able to, that gave me the room to find contracts with multiple companies in the Valley. And that was a very interesting experience. And sort of as a segue from there on, we moved to, I got into Singularity University. It's a startup program conducted at the NASA base. And we had about 90 people from 45 different countries. It was a 3-month residential program. It's very interesting. I had the opportunity to not only interact with these people in close quarters from around the world, but these were all people from different fields with expertise in law, in medicine, in policy, governance. And there was a huge UNICEF presence there. So you're wondering why UNICEF, of all the branches of the UN, why did they have UNICEF there? It turns out UNICEF is one of the most, they are really focused towards getting emerging solutions, emerging entrepreneurs and technologies, giving them that bandwidth to quickly be present in multiple countries, in Africa, in Europe, and different countries at the same time. So you might be starting a company in the Valley, you might have your customer base, but if you're working with UNICEF, then you might be able to quickly take that idea and take that company to, say, 10 different countries at the same time. And they give you the resources and they know how to be able to do that. So, well, it was during that time that I had thought about entrepreneurship now and then, but this program gave me the confidence, as well as it was a huge mind shift from being in corporate to starting a company. So this program definitely gave me that mind shift. Being immersed in all of this for 3 months definitely gave me that mind shift. So with that, let me go through some of the slides I have here, some about AI high-level definitions, and then some about what are the applications of AI currently, as well as in the future. I also want to say that when they curated this program at NASA, they made sure that it's their flagship program, Global Solutions Program, and they did the curation. They made sure that at least 40% of the community was women. So that was another highlight in the sense that I got to meet other women from around the world that are pushing the boundaries in different areas, whether it's biosciences, whether it's gene manipulation, or whether it's policy, whether it's lobbying. So I got to meet these women experts from around the world as well. So I know we are supposed to talk about this is specific to women. So any questions you have, I'm happy to answer. There are some resources out there, definitely specifically for women, that you should take advantage of. There are, for instance, Y Combinator has a women cohort, women only. Y Combinator has a startup school, and they have special resources for women. That's just an example of how some of these big ventures in VC funds are catering to women especially. And you should definitely take full advantage of it whenever you see an opportunity like that. So let me go through some of my slides, and then so definitions: AI, machine learning, and deep learning. So I think you're in the middle of a workshop. So again, machine learning is anything, any technique, unsupervised, supervised, decision trees, neural networks, all of this. It's a broad set of techniques. And deep learning is when you have a neural network that is actually a machine learning technique, but it's capable of learning by itself. It's able to adapt, And artificial intelligence, again, it depends on what the definition is, who you ask. For instance, if you're teaching Siri how to talk and how to mimic a human being, and if you're teaching a robot how to mimic a human being, then that would be artificial intelligence. You're teaching is this intelligence. It's not just a routine task. Like, for instance, if you are trying to predict credit card fraud, and you have transactions from that person, multiple transactions across different over a period of time, you're learning it and you're trying to find those transactions that are a fraud. Then that is usually a machine learning topic. Whereas if you're really trying to mimic human intelligence, taking it to the next step, teaching a robot nuances such as emotions, making the robot take its own decisions, and it being able to teach other robots. So that is AI, and those are the key differences. But there's a lot of overlap when it comes to the grassroots, the algorithms, the mathematics, the computing power, the computer engineering work that you have to do. There's a lot of overlap between these fields. Let's see. So again, there is, like I said, there's strong AI and weak AI, where you're programming machines to do. Strong AI is where I said you're giving it a human personality, you're giving it that full-blown, you're building something that is intelligent in itself. And weak AI is where you're teaching a machine to perform very narrow tasks. For instance, Samsung is building robots that are very good at picking up stuff. So they have a huge lab specifically for these robots that pick up stuff, and the goal is to automate the whole shelving process that you have in retail stores, in big warehouses, where these robots, instead of humans, they're very good at picking up stuff and then placing them and sorting them out. So that would be a good example of like narrow AI. Again, so I won't get into the details. I also have only like 45 minutes today, so I'm going to skip through some of these slides. So where are we at? This is an interesting one, current state of AI. Where are we today? So are we ready to solve all the problems with AI? Or where are we practically at? So for instance, IBM Watson IBM has invested a lot of resources in terms of AI, and Watson is their premium product. So let's just take that example. 5 years from now, before when I did a POC with IBM Watson, we tasked them with certain text processing use cases, which the system was not able to deliver. So we had to actually stop that POC. We didn't get what we wanted 5 years before, but now they have a Watson chatbot, and you can teach the chatbot different skills, and it does a lot of text mining. So between then and now, I'm already seeing a lot of improvement in terms of NLP, in terms of how far the algorithms have come, especially thanks to neural networks. There's these huge neural networks. Neural network is a machine learning technique, but thanks to tons of computing resources and tons of data available to Google and Facebook, these neural networks have come a long way in terms of being able to solve a lot of problems. Like, a lot of problems are already solved. Image recognition, it's already done. There's an algorithm out there, you can feed it. You're not going to build a neural network from scratch. So now it's just application. Image recognition, image identification, face detection. I remember working on face detection algorithms for my master's thesis, but now that's a solved problem. It's not just face detection. There's also algorithms that do face recognition. So you won't be coding these algorithms from scratch. Most likely you will be, if you are a machine learning engineer working in the industry, you will be taking these algorithms, fine-tuning the parameters, and implementing them on data that you already have. This is an interesting slide. So talking about taking a step back and talking about entrepreneurship and what's available out there and how is AI being used. I really like this slide in that sense because it gives you a bird's eye view of, I know it's a year outdated, but and when I put this together, it gives you a bird's eye view of everything, every field. What are the major companies, startups, as well as um, small, medium companies that are using AI. And some of these I'm very familiar with, so I will talk about those that I already know and give you an inkling into what they're doing. If you go to the bottom right, we have we have Automation Anywhere and UiPath. So what these two companies are doing is they actually got billions of dollars in funding, especially UiPath. It became a hotshot company in 2019, the later part of 2019. What they're doing is RPA, robotic process automation. It's another term that you will hear in the industry. What they're doing is taking jobs that are routine, like if you are creating a PowerPoint presentation, populating it with some data, and then you're presenting it, and you have this cadence, quarterly cadence or monthly cadence that you're doing. These are routine tasks. So they are automating these routine tasks that are done on the computer. So, and they're using, they're using computer engineering a lot, but they're also using AI to automate some of these paths. An example of something that we're doing in our work currently is looking at contracts. We have, in my work, my team is actually looking at sales contracts, taking the information from there. These contracts come in PDFs, using OCR technology to get that PDF into text. We are not building this technology again. We are using a Google plugin that helps us take this text data, this image data into text. And then we are parsing through that text, matching it with some of the contractual terms that we have to meet. And we are trying to automate that process. At least like there's somebody manually looking through the contracts or the codes and making sure everything's right. So we are trying to automate that. So this is an example of the work that's happening in terms of automating regular routine business processes. Not just business process, any process that somebody's working on a computer that does that. And then Descartes Labs and Orbital Insight, you'll see on the bottom right as well. It's kind of very interesting to me. I've been following them because a company, one of the ideas that I pursued coming out of Singularity Ventures was satellite imagery recognition services. So that was a key core product that we tried to develop using a plethora of, open source and some custom patented or patent pending libraries that we developed for imagery analysis, especially large area maps. So Orbital Insight is a company that specializes in that. And Descartes Labs is also another company that came out of a national lab. They spun off and they built, and their goal was to identify, use again, AI and image recognition. And they were specializing in identifying crops, different crops, crop yields. So if you have maize or barley, so there's a huge, they were getting into the commodities market. So if you are able to identify the health of these crops and based on images, how they're doing ahead of time. And if you're able to predict the yields from these crops a little bit ahead of everybody else, let's say you're able to even predict it 10 to 15 days ahead of it, that itself has a huge impact on how these commodities trade in the market. So that was one of the use cases, identifying using large aerial imagery to be able to influence something like in this case, a financial industry. On top, you see some of the AI companies that are in automation. So Iris Automation, Drive.ai. Drive.ai is actually right here in the Valley. I think it's in Mountain View. I think it's like 15 minutes from where I live. So it's interesting to see these companies where you live. And I mean, I feel like I think a lot of you live in the Valley, so it's interesting for you to be able to relate to some of these companies that pop up in a in a slide like this. So what they do is, again, automation around cars. When you look at cars, there is different levels of automation in cars: L1, L2, L3, L4. So for instance, in L1, automation will be something like the car can park itself, right? Or the car can go in a straight line from A to B. That may be L, or the car can brake automatically. And then you go to L2, L3, L4. L4 is full-fledged driving. And I think Tesla's the only thing that has a product like that in the market. And they're not even, and it's not even a complete product, right? So Drive.ai, there's a bunch of companies in that space. You'll see financials. And then on the bottom left, you will see something called training data generation. So what's that about? It's not really an application. How can somebody build a company around just training data? All it says is training data. What does that even mean? They are not in healthcare, they're not in finance, they're not doing automation, they're not industrials. And then you see that all it says over here is training data. Turns out it's actually a huge industry. There are a bunch of companies, especially in China, as well as here, around the world, that just specialize in creating training data. And why is this so important? For any machine learning algorithm, if you go to work, or even if in your workshop, you'll realize that for any machine learning algorithm to work, you need lots and lots of data for you to train the algorithm on. So there is, you just heard about supervised and unsupervised learning, and supervised learning is the most popular machine learning technique to date, with a lot more applications, just because you're able to tell the machine or the algorithm that the prediction it's making, whether it's right or not. To be able to tell whether it's right or not, so you need to have data for it to train on. So that itself is a huge industry in terms of creating this training data. There are some of these companies. So I know one company. It's again a crowdsourced company run by a female entrepreneur. What she has done is she has an app. Again, she's using crowdsourcing to create training data, where she has an app, and people can take pictures from all around the world in different categories, and they label these pictures. So because it's crowdsourced, what she's doing is providing the platform to get these for people from around the world, anybody, and leveraging the power of the crowds to automatically generate a lot of training data, which you can then sell to companies. Or if I'm someone that's looking to, for instance, let's say I have data. So there's two layers to it. One is crowdsourcing and labeling data that anybody can do. Even a 10-year-old will be able to identify certain images. If you're a teenager is able to identify certain things. If it's text, they're able to label it. So once you create this labeled data, then you can in turn sell it to either an automation company or anybody that's looking for this data, right? And the other piece to it is there are some VR companies, and you must have heard of VR, virtual reality. There are some companies in that space. What they're doing is they use software like Unity to create virtual worlds, gaming, all of that. And there's a slightly parallel industry that is spawned, that these companies are now using AR and VR technologies to create training data for some of these algorithms to run on, especially images and videos. If you're running AI on videos, if you're looking at the a video is nothing but a bunch of frames. So if you're looking at the progression of frames, then you can use then you're actually training on video data. So, and you can actually simulate that type of video in a software like Unity. That's virtual reality that's used to create AR and VR applications. So you will see some companies there that does that. So Yeah, so I'll stop there on this slide. So this, I just wanted to spend a lot of time, more time on this. So just so as to just give you an idea as to what are some of these applications. And then our last but not the least, EMR, medical data, medical records, electronic medical records, plus healthcare is a huge business. A lot of insurance companies are getting into this area. And for instance, Lintas is a company that I kind of know of, and there's a whole bunch of others in there. And in the current situation with respect to COVID and everything going virtual, you would have seen that a lot of these tech companies are getting a lot of hype in the market, as well as we are using virtual technologies a lot more. And there is applications for AI in all of these technologies. Whether you work at Zoom, where you are where you're running a video platform, but you also have features such as you record the video. So I know a friend of mine, a colleague of mine at Cisco, tried to do something around it. He took WebEx videos, and he used machine learning to. The transcription is already available to you in most of these software, like speech to text is already done. But being able to identify certain things in the video, the start and stop of sessions, automatically tagging these sessions. So if you create a YouTube video, you can actually go and add tags. So you don't want to, you can't ask people to watch the whole video. So you tell them, hey, go to 15.5 seconds where I'm doing this or where I'm saying this, or go to this particular timestamp in the video. So he was trying to he tried to create software around automatically tagging, automatically identifying these sessions, automatically tagging them. So anyways, those are all examples of what's out there for you to go and explore and start a company on, or just get creative to see what's going on in this field. So like I said, AI comes in speech recognition, like I put Alexa, Siri, etc. there, image recognition, recommendation services. This is something that's been used for a long time now. You've been getting recommendations from Netflix, Amazon, retail, customized recommendation services. There's a whole bunch of marketing technology, MarTech, that uses these recommendation services for ad assets management and customization of ad products. So then the next set of slides are fun because there's lots of pictures in them. So there's smart sensors and wearables. There's a huge explosion of wearables. So imagine all of this data that's coming out of Apple Watches and Fitbits. So some of these companies have their own in-house data scientists and machine learning engineers that's working on all of this data. But how do you actually when you collect all of this data, how do you make it actionable? So how do you get value out of these products and take them to the next step? It's not just it's collecting your the latest Apple Watch is able to I think they just released it last week, and it has additional capabilities around monitoring your blood oxygen level. So that was a feature that I think it's that. I think it's the blood oxygen level that then they came out with the new Apple Watch, they announced it. So when you're monitoring all of this, you're generating more and more data. So as we generate more and more data, all of these applications for AI are going to be more and more important, because you want to track this data, look at patterns in it. So what's normal heart rate for somebody? What is normal activity level for somebody? And when are they deviating from that normal? What are some of their patterns? And what type of suggestions can you give them? Not just in terms of monitoring their lifestyle and fitness, but also in terms of monitoring and managing some of the chronic diseases that they may have. And insurance companies are very interested in this type of work, because it saves them Mondo bills later on, right? So that's Yeah, so that's like, so again, like this is again lifestyle. So you must know about this company. It's called Mirror.co. It's become very popular, especially during this pandemic. So you have a mirror, you project, you do exercises on it, and then the mirror also tracks your body movement, and then it gives you suggestions on how to correct yourself. So in the future, maybe you won't have regular mirrors, but you will have mirrors with AR in them. So it's already there. People have these mirrors already in their homes, and the sales for this company, I guess it's been skyrocketing, especially during the pandemic, because people want to exercise at home. So in the future, these are the types of mirrors you'll have, right? So as well as on the right side, nutrition and lifestyle. So there are apps already out there that where you can, if you're before eating, you take a picture of your food, and every time you eat, you consult the app, and it tells you the caloric value of your food. And what it does internally, it uses a lot of image recognition. Like I said, image recognition is a very successful AI area. There's some areas where AI has been more successful than others, and image recognition, identification, imagery has been one of those. So here is an example of a lifestyle app. So what they're doing here is they're using two technologies. One is AI, and they're using augmented reality. So augmented reality and virtual reality is another two upcoming parallel fields. So that is AR, VR, and I heard about something called XR. So I was like, what is XR? XR is AI plus AR, VR. So there you go. There's an official term coined around it as well. So that's a budding industry, as you see. So there's AR components that are coming up. So it'll tell you the pills, dietary pills, what's your current weight, what's your goal. So it even tells you your current weight is 189 pounds, but after you eat this plate with pancakes and beef patties and all that butter, then your weight after that will be up by 4 pounds. So if you actually see that in real time, then maybe you won't eat all of it. So this is a lot of fine-tuned, customized lifestyle products that are in this space. So again, this is another example of an Apple Watch that was in the news. Emergency services on Star, and geriatrics is a key area. Elderly patient care. They have things that they use wearables now. They don't want to be monitored by a video; it's too intrusive. So they use motion sensors and different things. So to be able to maintain their independence and not move to a facility and still stay at home. So that's another area as well. Companies like AARP, if you work on something in this area, I know AARP has a fund where they encourage entrepreneurs in this area to apply, and especially in terms of geriatrics, insurance, and elderly patient care. Yeah, this is another example of using, again, image recognition. You don't need to, your smartphone is actually very, very, very powerful. It's getting to be almost as powerful, especially with the application of smartphones combined with edge versus cloud technologies and IoT. Then they're going to be even more powerful because they can be the edge devices. They can send the data that they collect to a cloud, and they can communicate with other large networked huge servers. And that opens up another area of just using your smartphone as a sensor. So here you'll see that. Here you see how they're actually able to not just look at, not just zoom in and look at it, but they're also diagnosing. So he gets an image, and then in real time, there's a machine learning algorithm that compares the healthy eye versus other examples here, and it even comes up with the diagnosis. So this is another area where computer vision is up and coming. So those are the fun slides with lots of pictures. So what's the technology behind all of this AI is natural language processing, computer vision, neural networks, deep learning, machine learning. and different types of neural networks. When you go into deep learning itself, there's so many different types of deep learning algorithms. And if you are looking to get skilled in this, there is definitely a talent gap. So if you are looking to get skilled in some of these areas, if you're already a good computer engineer or a full stack engineer, or if you're a manager that's trying to build a team around, or trying to see how you can use AI in your current team, whether you're an entrepreneur or if you have a business and everybody's talking about data and the data economy, and you have to be able to leverage data if you want to build a successful business. You have to have that competitive edge. You keep hearing about all that. So what do you do? How do you, so you're new to this, you don't necessarily want to go and study this technology and figure out how all these algorithms work, or how to get this data, or what data to collect. So there are resources available to you as someone that's a product manager, an entrepreneur, or a senior executive that's trying to get this technology into their fields. There's resources available as well. Yeah, future of AI. This is the future is already here. So we have self-driving cars, medicine, AI-generated responses. Again, chatbots is another area where AI is being used more and more. The technology behind chatbots has already been there, the chat messaging services, but now it's that adding that additional layer of natural language processing to be able to spin out lots of chatbots really fast. So one of my friends was telling me about she works in she's a VP in healthcare, and her team has spun out, depending on the type of insurance and the particular area that they're dealing with. So she has a team of people that spun out about 500 different chatbots, all specifically specialized to a particular topic. So that's an example of how AI and machine learning are impacting the service industry, customer service, as well as being able to resolve support tickets really fast. Yeah, so this is a pyramid in terms of AI. So I won't get into the details of all this. So I'll stop my slides here, and I'll open up for any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Preethi. Thank you for updating us on the latest AI products, cool AI startups, and talking about the women entrepreneurship. I have a couple of questions for you. Could you please share with us the challenges that you faced as a women entrepreneur in AI, and how did you overcome that?
So, the way I would answer that question is, I wouldn't say there are specific challenges as a women entrepreneur in AI that you face. It's the same sort of challenges that you face as a woman in technology or a woman in entrepreneurship. Those same general set of rules and apply. Getting adoption, but when you're in a corporate setup, you have HR, there is inclusion and diversity seminars, people are getting aware of it, and then depending on how many women you have in your team, it's easier to interact and get that rapport going. So HR, inclusion and diversity, all these women empowerment programs, the corporates are investing a lot in it, and that's coming up, and there's a lot more women, and it's almost becoming commonplace in certain areas, right? And technology is one of those fields where there is a lot more women in some sense yes, and in some sense no. Because when you are in technology, then you are valued for a particular skill. So if you're really, really good at coding, and if you're really, really good at doing what you're doing, they don't care who you are in some sense. But what happens when you step out of this cocoon of the corporate world, and you're out there on your own? So when you're an entrepreneur, you're out there on your own. It's up to you to go find customers, to go talk to VCs. So you are definitely, you're not provided all of these resources. You don't have an IT team, so you might have to go talk to Amazon and get some startup credits, to get some credits on AWS, so you can build something out there, because you don't really have the server capacity. You can't just like launch an app with your laptop. You need the compute resources. So you are talking to everybody, and you're out there on your own. So it's definitely a little bit more challenging than being in the corporate world. But that said, whatever type of entrepreneur you are, whether you're doing in AI, whether you're doing in you're starting a medical company, whether you are starting a fashion company, something like Stitch Fix. It's a company, again, was started by a woman entrepreneur. She's from MIT. She's an MIT alum. So they do face the same set of I would say challenges, or in other words, opportunities. Let's just say they're opportunities instead of challenges. And so just leverage all the resources that are out there, in terms of grounding yourself, in terms of speaking up, in terms of having a presence, in terms of being professional, in terms of being inclusive, and just hone these skills while you work in the industry, and take as many of these seminars and expose yourself. So when you come out of this corporate world, when you're out there, and you're not paid, so your paycheck is not, it's up to you to go find the next client and convince him or her and get that project. So, or you don't have a paycheck. So if you put yourself in that real world, so then that's another situation where you will be forced to come out of your shell, because it's just what you have to do. So I hope that answered your question.
Yep. And one more quick question. So you talked about crowdsourcing. When you want to label the data, you talked about a crowdsourcing platform. I'm just wondering, how can you maintain quality when you crowdsource data for labeling? Because if you feed garbage into AI models, you will get only garbage out of it. How do you maintain quality?
Yeah. So again, when you go to the crowdsourced environment, there are different techniques. One is being able to build trust. So 10 years from now, if you said something, the company like Airbnb, where you would open up your home to strangers to come in and be able to, and you're sharing your home with strangers, not just once, but you're doing it constantly. You're just renting out a room to multiple people. So 10 years before, people didn't think that they were not, maybe 20 years before, they didn't have that trust built, that social trust. But with the backing of a company like Airbnb, that sort of acts as the mediator, that vets both parties. They check ID, they check who you are, they sort of have these quality checks before they match you up. So that in general, that's how crowdsourced technologies in general came up. But we're talking about specifically about crowdsourced knowledge sharing. So in that case, I would use the same, I would say the same business model, or the same user management model, like as a platform like maybe Stack Overflow. So where you have some experts, there's different levels of experts, and different, for instance, labeling, there's different levels of people, group 1, group 2, level 1, level 2. And then then there's experts and admins that are monitoring the whole process. So so when you actually do a good job, you get, it's also gamification helps as well. When you do a good job, then you get certain credits, and then your reputation grows up. So even within that crowdsourced environment, you're able to establish a reputation for yourself, whether you are, whatever side you are on. So whether you're a consumer of this labeled data, so how much are you consuming, how frequently do you request, what's your pay rate for these, let's say, this set of data, as a consumer as well as a producer of this content, there's some of these tested models that you can leverage: gamification, reputation building, authority building, and monitoring the network in terms of authority, in terms of contribution, all of that.
Thank you.
There is one question in the comment section. So Anuradha wants to know, is there fraud detection in crowdsourcing?
Fraud protection.
No, detection, she has said.
Oh, okay.
So I think they said both. I think then they're both related, right? You have to detect fraud in order to be able to protect yourself from fraud. So definitely, that's And that's where AI helps as well. Whenever you are in any cloud source platform, whether it's Airbnb or there's a crowdsourced platform for cars, right? So you actually, if your car is sitting idle now, you wouldn't have thought that even like 5 or 6 years before, you wouldn't have thought that, oh, hey, my car is sitting idle, so let me just make some money out of it by renting my car out. So in all these situations, yes, that's why, so Get Around is an app like that. So that's why if you generate a crowdsourced company, you being able, if you want that company or that a platform to be successful, you being able to take some of that legal responsibility on your end is something you can't get around. So you have to take that upfront risk, and you have to have features in place to detect fraud, as well as give your clients certain level of protection, so they trust, and you have to establish your credibility so they trust you to come back to you, and that's very important in any type of crowdsourced business. And to answer that question a little bit in detail, so machine learning is an area where you can use pattern detection, the same type of fraud detection algorithms you will use for credit card fraud. For instance, you're looking at transactions, you're looking at who's making the transactions, what they're buying, where they're buying it. So this pattern, being able to leverage these user patterns, again, using machine learning, it is one way to detect fraud.
Nice. Thank you, Preethi. And is there anything? Yeah, that's about the question that she had. She said, thank you for answering. Thank you, Preethi, for, on a Sunday, you are like, you spent your afternoon session for us, and it was very informative. Thank you very much for joining us and giving some knowledge about all the companies. And it was really informative for all the ladies in here joined today. Thank you very much.
Sure. Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me today. I'll hang around here for some time. If you have any questions, I'll be on chat. I will put down, or you can also, Subhagami and Meena, they know how to get hold of me as well. So in case there's any follow-up, I'll leave it to them.
Sure.
All right. Thank you, guys.